A massive rocket stood ready for a difficult and uncertain 2-year mission to Mars. It looked as if it was waiting to leave this blue Earth behind and travel toward a distant, unknown world. Inside were 3 brave astronauts: Mission Commander Marina, on her final mission, Biologist David, and Medical Officer Zoe, responsible for everyone's health and safety. All 3 lay strapped in their seats, hearts racing. Then, with the final countdown, the rocket blasted off. A violent jolt shook through the cabin, and every vibration reminded them that they were leaving the safety of Earth and stepping into the harsh reality of space. Within minutes, the rocket climbed 70 kilometers above the atmosphere. Suddenly, Commander Marina noticed a malfunction in the main engine. She immediately ordered everyone to put on their helmets and prepared to abort the mission. Panic filled the cabin. Everything now depended on the final instruction from the ground station. The 3 held their breath. Then, a message came through. The engine had stabilized. The mission could continue. Relief washed over them, and with renewed confidence, the rocket shot forward, breaking free from Earth's atmosphere. Soon, they reached Earth's orbit. Through the capsule window, they saw the calm, stunning blue of their planet. The sight brought a smile to all their faces. Their next step was to dock their capsule to the massive spacecraft waiting in orbit. This ship would be their home for the next 6 months and would carry them across the endless void to Mars. Slowly, the capsule approached the spacecraft, and with a soft metallic click, it docked. With that, the 3 astronauts stepped into a new chapter, but none of them knew that this mission would soon become the worst mistake of their lives. After entering the huge spacecraft, they immediately began setting up their equipment. When they opened a large window shutter, Earth appeared once more, floating quietly below, almost as if the universe itself was watching them. Later, the 3 sat together for breakfast. Between laughs, David joked that they would have to tolerate each other for the next 2 years. After eating, they contacted the ground station and reported the mission status. During the call, it became clear that this was Marina's final mission before retirement. The ground team asked a few questions about her, while the spacecraft drifted farther and farther from Earth. The deep silence of space slowly wrapped around them. Sometime later, Marina was checking the systems. When she noticed drops of blood on the floor, her heart froze. She looked up toward the main unit of the life support system. When she opened the panel, an unconscious man tumbled out. The shock stole her breath. David and Zoe rushed over and were stunned by the sight. None of them could understand how a man had ended up inside their spacecraft. David and Zoe quickly placed him on a stretcher and began treating him. He was severely injured. While they worked, Marina discovered that a major amount of oxygen had leaked because the life support system was damaged. She immediately informed the ground station. Later, Marina revealed that the man's name was Michael, a member of the launch support team, but how he ended up trapped inside the spacecraft was still a complete mystery. He was supposed to be on Earth at the time of launch. David asked in disbelief how such a massive mistake could even happen. Marina, while trying to keep Michael from falling earlier, broke her arm. Zoe quickly put it in a cast and told her it would take 6 weeks to heal. At that moment, all 3 began to realize that this mission would not be as simple as they had hoped. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the ship. The system reported that carbon dioxide levels had risen by 2%. Panic rippled through the crew. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of their troubles. What awaited them in the coming days was far worse than anything they could have imagined. After some time, Michael slowly regained consciousness. Unsteady on his feet, he wandered through the spacecraft until his eyes fell on the enormous window. Beyond it stretched the endless darkness of space. With Earth glowing faintly in the distance, the sight shook him to his core. In that moment, he truly understood that he had left Earth behind, and there was no way back. Just then, Zoe rushed forward and caught him before he stumbled. In a panicked voice, Michael kept asking, "Is the launch over? Are we really in space?" Commander Marina gently asked, "Do you remember what happened last time?" Michael, confused, said he was only doing his job, but remembered nothing else. The commander then told him he had been unconscious for 12 hours. Hearing this, Michael's face collapsed with fear. He begged to return to his younger sister immediately. She was alone at home, and he couldn't imagine leaving her for a 2-year mission. But Marina's voice carried a harsh truth. Returning was now impossible. The spacecraft was heading toward Mars at a speed of 70 kilometers per hour, and turning back from this orbit simply couldn't be done. Zoe worked hard to calm him, and after long persuasion, Marina finally told him that the ground station had contacted his sister. She was safe, and NASA would now take full responsibility for her care and expenses. Michael's breathing eased, and for the first time, a flicker of hope returned to his eyes. Over the next few hours, the 3 astronauts slowly formed a bond with him. The next day, Zoe began teaching Michael the rules and systems of the spacecraft. She took him to the giant observation window again. This time, he didn't panic. Instead, he stood spellbound at the most breathtaking view he had ever seen. Space seemed to open its doors to him for the very first time. As night came, everyone went to bed. A heavy, strange silence filled the spacecraft, as if the universe itself was warning them of the danger that lay ahead. The following morning, Marina sent Zoe, fully suited in her spacesuit, to the chamber where Michael had been found. A short circuit in the life support system had caused the damage, and Zoe was inspecting the area. After taking photos, Marina informed the ground station that the part needed immediate repair, or the mission would fail entirely. There was fear hidden in her voice. Meanwhile, David was in his lab. Marina asked how much oxygen his plants could produce per day. David replied, "Barely 90 liters." Marina's tone grew serious. "Can you increase it to 950 liters? David was stunned. It was impossible with small plants. Only algae, stored for the Mars research phase, could produce that much. Nervously, he asked why she needed so much oxygen. Marina revealed the truth. They were on the edge of a major disaster. The spacecraft would run out of oxygen within a few days. David suggested using half the algae now and saving the rest for Mars. Marina agreed, but warned him not to tell Zoe or Michael. While Zoe and Michael worked on repairing the life support system, David began producing oxygen from the algae. The next day, he reported that the algae were generating 550 liters per day. Marina immediately told him to use the remaining stock so the output could reach 1,000 liters. But David hesitated. If all the algae were used now, his entire Mars research project, his life stream, would be destroyed. Marina then revealed an even harsher truth. The oxygen generator was beyond repair, and the carbon filtration system was also failing. If this continued, they would suffocate. They had no choice but to rely completely on the algae. Without it, survival was nearly impossible. Left with no other option, David placed the rest of the algae into production, but when he later returned to his lab, the ground slipped from under him. Half the algae had spoiled. Now, they could only produce 550 liters a day, far less than what was needed. This amount wasn't enough to reach Mars alive. Commander Marina immediately contacted the ground station and explained everything, but the response was devastating. They couldn't send fresh oxygen supplies. The spacecraft had already traveled too far and too fast. No other ship could catch up to them now. At this point, they had no solution. Commander Marina shared the harsh truth with David and Zoe, and deep worry settled across their faces. With a heavy voice, Marina explained that they couldn't reach Mars with Michael aboard. A week before landing, the carbon dioxide level would rise so high that all 3 of them would suffocate in space. Zoe immediately reminded them about the large tank mounted on top of the spacecraft, filled with liquid oxygen before launch. Maybe some oxygen still remained, but David explained that the tank was 450 meters above the spacecraft on the outer edge. Reaching it was extremely dangerous. The route was surrounded by solar panels and delicate wires. One wrong move could shut down the entire spacecraft. Taking a deep breath, Marina said she was telling them all this so they could mentally prepare for what was coming. Every space agency on Earth was working to find a solution, but no one knew when or if an answer would be found. Marina then revealed another painful truth. Their lives were in danger because of Michael. The oxygen he consumed each day was pushing them closer to death. Zoe immediately flared up with anger. "So what? You want us to tell Michael to throw himself into space so we can survive? Is that what you're saying?" she shouted. An argument erupted between them, but after a moment, Marina calmed herself and said she hadn't reached a conclusion yet. They would take 10 days to search for a solution for Michael. Meanwhile, Michael had no idea of the danger closing in on the spacecraft. He had blended in with the group and felt like a real part of the team. By now, the spacecraft had traveled millions of kilometers away from Earth. The blue planet was nothing more than a tiny glowing dot behind them. 3 more days passed, but no solution emerged. David finally told the commander, "We can't wait any longer. If Earth had a solution, they would have told us by now. We must make a decision, whatever it costs. We can't risk our own lives to save Michael." His voice trembled with fear and helplessness. Time was slipping away. Night fell, leaving a heavy silence hanging over the spacecraft, an oppressive darkness weighing on the minds of all three. Marina, David, and Zoe sat alone in their corners, each lost in thought, wrestling with the same impossible question. David, devastated, sat quietly for a long time. Then, suddenly, he stood up and went to his locker. He took something out and walked straight toward Michael. He could no longer keep the truth from him. His voice was tired and trembling as he told Michael everything. "With you here, we'll all die before reaching Mars. For the past 3 days, we've been searching for a solution, but nothing has been found. Every breath you take is putting this mission and our lives at risk. I was ordered not to tell you, but there's no point hiding it anymore. They've paused the decision for your sake, giving 10 days in the hope of finding something." Michael asked in a shaky voice, "Is there a way out?" David took a deep breath. "No. If there was, NASA would have told us." Then he placed an injection on the table beside Michael and said quietly, "This won't hurt. You'll just fall into a deep sleep." His head lowered, his voice broke, and he apologized before walking away. Hearing this, Michael felt his world collapse. He realized he had to take his own life to save the other 3. He picked up the injection, sat in his cabin, and tried to gather the courage. Before doing anything, he recorded a message for his younger sister. His voice was heavy. "Now you'll have to face everything on your own, and I know you will." Meanwhile, David, too, was falling apart. He had forced this unbearable truth onto Michael, and it was breaking him from the inside. A short while later, Zoe approached Michael quietly and said, "There's no need for this." But Michael, heartbroken, said there was no other choice. He thanked her for fighting for 10 more days. Zoe's eyes filled with tears. "I won't let you die like this. You don't need to kill yourself." Michael handed the injection back to her. Burning with rage, Zoe stormed out and went straight to David. She threw the injection at him and shouted, "Why did you do this? Why did you tell him everything? And why did you take something from my lab? We agreed on 10 days. David replied tiredly, "We can't risk waiting 10 days. I'm trying to save the 3 of us and this mission. You wanted to kill him from day 1. Zoe snapped, "You didn't even try." David's composure finally cracked. Filled with anger and pain, he shouted, "I didn't try. I spent my entire life researching and building these systems so all of you could breathe. Now, I'll have nothing left to study on Mars for the next 2 years. And what did you do? You just accused me." Zoe fell silent. She had no answer. Quietly, she turned and walked away. After some time, Zoe picked up a manual and began searching for a way to reach the oxygen tank attached to the top of the spacecraft with Michael. The tank sat nearly half a kilometer above them, and the path to reach it was extremely dangerous, but they had run out of options. She began training Michael for the climb, but it proved far too difficult. He had never done anything like this in his life. Eventually, exhausted and defeated, Zoe returned to Commander Marina and David. She told them Michael wouldn't be able to make the climb. She then asked David for help, and to her surprise, David agreed immediately, without a single argument. The commander and David then showed Zoe something that drained the color from her face. Half of the remaining algae had rotted away. This meant the little oxygen they had been producing was now gone. With a heavy voice, Marina said, "We only have enough oxygen for 2 people now." After thinking for a moment, she instructed them, "When you reach the top, connect the gauge first. It will tell you how much oxygen is left in the tank." David and Zoe suited up immediately and prepared for this nearly impossible mission. Every step they took now would either lead them to life or straight into death. Finally, they opened the hatch and stepped outside, greeted by a vast ocean of darkness stretching endlessly around them. Silence surrounded them from all directions. Only faint rays of sunlight glinted off the spacecraft's metal surface, making the journey feel even more lonely and surreal. Inside, the commander constantly instructed them. She explained that once they reached the top, they would experience artificial gravity, but the higher they climbed toward the oxygen tank, the weaker the gravity would become. They would have to stay balanced at all costs. She also warned them not to damage any of the cables along the route. Even the slightest mistake could shut down the spacecraft's power supply and end the mission instantly. Slowly, they began their climb up the 450-meter tower. When they finally reached the top, they found themselves suspended in the endless silence of space. Far below, Earth and the sun looked like tiny shimmering dots. The sight was breathtaking and terrifying. They paused for a moment to steady their breathing, while the commander watched through the live feed, guiding them step by step. The artificial gravity was almost gone now, making the climb feel both easier and more dangerous. Eventually, they reached the fragile section of solar panels. This point was only halfway up the route. The commander issued a stern warning. Cross this section with absolute caution. If even one panel was damaged, the spacecraft's power would be lost forever, and no one would survive. Zoe and David carefully crossed the delicate area and continued toward the oxygen tank. As they began to descend toward it, they re-entered the influence of artificial gravity. After a while, they reached the tank, but now the challenge grew even more dangerous. They had to climb further down, where there was no support to hold on to. Sitting at the edge of the tower, Zoe peered into the infinite darkness below. This was the last edge of the spacecraft. One slip would send her drifting into the silent void forever. Because Zoe was lighter, they decided she would descend. She tied the rope around herself and carefully lowered her body. As she reached the hatch, it opened directly into the cold emptiness of space. The sight alone sent fear rushing through her. She entered and finally came face to face with the massive oxygen tank. Quickly, she connected the pipes and checked the gauge. When she saw the reading, hope surged through her. There was enough oxygen, enough for 4 people. Hearing the good news, Michael and the commander were overwhelmed with relief. The commander immediately ordered, "Send the first cylinder." Zoe quickly filled the cylinder and sent it upward, where David grabbed it securely. As soon as the second cylinder reaches Zoe, she starts filling it. Suddenly, a terrifying warning siren echoes through the spacecraft. The commander's voice breaks in. "This is a solar storm alert. Get back right now, or the radiation will kill you." But Zoe insists, "There's only a little oxygen left. I'll return once it's filled." The commander shouts back, "This storm is lethal. It will reach your position in 20 minutes. Return now, or you won't survive." Forced to abandon the second cylinder, Zoe races upward as fast as she can. Both she and David begin descending. At the same time, the commander and Michael turn off every system in the spacecraft to protect their electronics from the incoming storm. Zoe reports that they've covered 25% of the distance. Only 8 minutes remain. David's breathing grows heavy. Hours of climbing have drained every ounce of energy from his body. His pace slows, his legs trembling with exhaustion. He lets Zoe go ahead and says, "Keep going, I'm right behind you." Zoe manages to cross the solar panel section, and the artificial gravity reactivates. But in her panic, she forgets to attach her climbing hook. In an instant, she loses her grip and plummets downwards at high speed. She screams as she crashes into the ceiling of the spacecraft. The impact sends the only filled oxygen cylinder flying out of her hand, disappearing into the endless, silent darkness of space. Their last hope drifts away into the void. The only air that could save their lives is gone forever. A heavy silence fills the spacecraft. In a shaking voice, David says, "There's still another oxygen tank up there, slowly leaking. If he can reach it somehow, maybe they can survive." But outside, the solar storm is still raging. Its radiation can kill in seconds, and it will continue for hours. Hope fades rapidly. Michael steps forward and says, "I can go," but the commander immediately stops him. "You can't. You haven't even done basic spacewalk training. If you go out there, we lose another life." Zoe's eyes fill with pain. She turns to David and says, "You have a family. You're not going. I'll do it." This is their last chance to save the mission. Someone has to take that risk. Zoe's eyes harden with determination. As she prepares to climb again, the commander breaks down, tears streaming as she whispers, "Forgive me. If my arm wasn't broken, I would have gone myself." Zoe puts on her helmet and quietly opens the hatch. She steps out into the storm. The radiation is so intense that it tears through her suit, burning her from the inside. But Zoe doesn't stop. She climbs the tower again, retracing the same deadly path she had barely survived moments earlier. She reaches the second oxygen tank, secures it tightly to her suit, and begins her descent. Every second, the storm eats away at her body. As she approaches the spacecraft, deep burns cover her skin. Still, she pushes the tank inside, seals the hatch, and remains alone outside in the violent storm. Now fully exposed, she sinks down slowly, breathing heavily. She looks at Mars one last time. The sight brings a small, peaceful smile to her face. She knows she will never return, but her sacrifice has saved the other three. A calm acceptance fills her eyes, as if she carries no regrets. In this emotional and heartbreaking moment, her story fades into the silent void, her body swallowed by the storm, and with that, the mission reaches its tragic end. Friends, if you liked this video and got lost in the story while watching, please subscribe to support us so we can keep bringing you more videos like this. Thanks for watching.